for Ilui Neshama, for the holy soul of Nachshon Ben Avraham Avinu. He spoke last week, we're a few hours before Hanukkah, and there's two things that we should try to concentrate on during Hanukkah. And believe it or not, you might be surprised, but it's not jelly donuts, so you can take your mind off that. And it's not those livivot, those latkes.
What's a dreidel?
It's not those sivivonim, those dreidels. No, you can take your mind off that. Two things we have to keep in mind. We have to understand one thing. The milkman writes, the Chalban writes, that we know that the first two sons of Yaakov Avinu was Reuven and Shimon. Reuven is from the words eyes, roeh, sees. Shimon is from hearing. Shimon is hearing. Now we know that Reuven was supposed to receive the three biggest titles in Am Yisrael. Right? There's in boxing, there's the heavyweight champion, and there's the Stanley Cup in hockey, but there's in Judaism there's the three big titles were supposed to be bestowed upon the head of Reuven. One of them was he was supposed to be the father of the Kohanim, the priests. He was also supposed to be the kingship was supposed to come from him, and also he was as the firstborn, of course. He was supposed to be the person that would take the lead. The firstborn are people that are leaders, and Reuven, he lost all those three titles, which is a pretty big loss if you come to think about it. So we have these two. Yaakov Avinu, when he gives birth to his first two sons, we're doing here something very special. We're doing here that we're hoping to correct anything that we used our eyes for that was not for a good purpose. What do we see? A person comes home at night. What does he see? Sometimes a person sees only bad things. Comes home, starts yelling at his wife or yelling at her husband. Why? Because the way that they're accustomed to seeing things is not in a good light. So everything becomes bad. They look over here. Why isn't this like that? Why isn't this straightened up? Why aren't the dishes? So their eye is not one of a good eye, an ayin tovah. So on Hanukkah, we have the highest level of a tikkun, because we know that we're not allowed to use the candles. But there's a mitzvah to look at the flame, the wicks of the candle, to look at them at least for a half hour. Now some great Rabbanim, some great Rebbes, they would look for hours. They would dump that oil. They would pour a lot of oil, and they would just keep on looking for hours. They're looking for hours. Now, if some of us recall that on the evening of Shabbat, we quoted a couple weeks ago, we quoted the Ben Ish Chai, that when we do Kiddush, we're doing tremendous things during our Kiddush. Every Shabbat evening, we're doing a tremendous thing. We're drinking the wine, which is a tikkun of, as we said, is a tikkun of the opinion in the Gemara that the Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge, was a grape. And number two, we make the hamotzi, and we're doing a tremendous tikkun because the second opinion in that same Gemara is that the tree of knowledge was wheat, bread. And the third opinion was that it was a fig, which is something that is beautiful to look at. Something that's beautiful to look at. The shape, the leaves. People see the kind of leaves that are on a fig tree. They're very interesting kind, to say the least. They're very interesting, those fig leaves. So that we do a tikkun by looking at the candles. If we look in the Mishnah Brura, he writes that when we say Kiddush on Friday night, a person, at least for the beginning words which spell out God's name, Yom HaShishi Vayichulu HaShamayim. Yom HaShishi Vayichulu HaShamayim. It's God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. At least for that opening, we should be looking at the candles, because there's a tremendous tikkun, there's a tremendous fixing that we're able to do with our eyes. So that is on the evening of Shabbat. But here we have not one evening, but we have 8 days that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us this tremendous present in order to fix our eyes. Because we have a problem with our eyes. A person looks and he sees an advertisement for a movie, he sees advertisements for all kinds of materialistic things, and his eyes lead him astray. So how do we look? How do we look at the world? How do we look at ourselves? How do we look at other people's? How do we look at our husbands? How do we look at our wives? So this is a tremendous thing. On Hanukkah, the tikkun is those candles. Looking at those candles, looking at that light. And that's Reuven. That's the tikkun of Reuven. Now if we mentioned Reuven a few days ago when we read the Parsha, let us remember this always during our life. Tremendous lesson. If we take the Parsha, we see two people kind of trying to make their ways, trying to pose as leaders. Yonatan, I hope you don't mind we started without you. I hope you don't mind. We see, if you look closely, we see a tremendous thing there. As we said, Reuven was supposed to be the king, but he's not the king. The king is Yehuda. Why is that? Chazal say in the Gemara, when Yehuda comes back to Eretz Yisrael after Yosef tosses him out and says, "You're spies." And by the way, if we already mentioned this, I have to say the tremendous depth of the words of the holy Rav Hillel Eliyahu Lieberman, Hashem Yikam Damo, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. Rav Hillel points out a tremendous point, and remember also this point all our lives. Yosef, who they don't know it's Yosef says, Yosef says, "Where are you guys from?" What do they answer? Anyone remember what they answer? They say, "Eretz Canaan." Eretz Canaan? From Eretz Canaan? Oh, I'm from Palestine. That's great. From Palestine? Where is that exactly? You're from Eretz Canaan? Where is that exactly on the map? Yosef, who taught us a lesson, that everywhere that he went in Mitzrayim, even though it was a dangerous thing to say. Imagine you get caught in Shechem, you're walking around in Shechem, and they want to know what kind of citizen you are. Do you tell them that you're a Jewish citizen, or you tell them that you pull out your American passport, your Canadian passport? Not an easy thing. It's not an easy question. So Yosef, for him it was no question. Everywhere he went in Mitzrayim, when they said, "Where are you from?" he said, "I'm from Eretz HaIvrim." I'm from Eretz HaIvrim, not Canaan. It's Eretz HaIvrim, buddy. Get it straight. So what's the next, when the brothers answer, "We're from Eretz Canaan," what does Yosef say? "Miraglim atem." And the holy Rav Hillel points out, why does he call them Miraglim? It's unusual. It's an unusual kind of statement to come out. Where are you from? Oh, we're from Eretz Canaan. Oh, you're Miraglim. So Rav Hillel says an unbelievable Torah here, that once he heard the words, we're from Eretz Canaan, okay, then he knew that they had the deen of the Meraglim. They had the law of the Meraglim. How can you say such a thing? How can you say such an expression even? Use the P word. How could a person use that word? They're Arabs, a lot of time, but can't use that word. So this is a tremendous thing. People that use those words, they have the law, the deen of a spy, of the Meraglim. Oh, that we can't get into Eretz Yisrael. Those people create a situation that we don't come into Eretz Yisrael. Once we start using Canaan and the P word, we're losing our claim to Eretz Yisrael. And then we're getting thrown out. That's exactly what the spies, that's what they caused us to be thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. Instead of coming in Eretz Yisrael, we were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. Until we did a tikkun for 40 years. For their 40 days, a year, every day, we have to do this tremendous tikkun. So that's a tremendous thing. I'm surprised that everyone here is still sitting here. Maybe I think that food is weighing you down over here, man. You gotta get out of your skin here. Skin actually is a touchy subject for me today, on my foot. But anyways, back to what we said. There's a battle going on here. Who's going to be the leader of the Jewish people? Is it going to be Reuven or is it going to be Yehuda? And if we see, when Yehuda comes back and he tells what happened, what does Reuven say to Yaakov? Reuven says, no problem, Dad. You could kill my 2 kids. Gewalt, Gewalt. I like that. It's like one of these Arab, you notice like many Arabs, they're not the ones that do the actual actions. They send people out to do the actions. We like those kinds of people. They send people out instead of doing it themselves. So Reuven is large here. He's offering his 2 sons. Isn't that nice? Yehuda comes to his father and says, Anochi Arevenu. I am his guarantor. I am the guarantor. If Binyamin doesn't come back to you, Abba, then I lose my share in this world and the world to come. And the Gemara says on those words that the words of Yehuda hitkablu b'shamayim were accepted in heaven. We see here Reuven offering his sons instead of doing himself. That's like a politician. They blame everyone else except themselves. They don't take the responsibility. Everyone, that guy, yeah.
אני לא מסכים. ראובן, הבנים של אדם יותר כמו קראהם הבנים, אלא ידע שהעשב יהרוג את הנכדים שלו. אבל באמת הוא התרגש בשני בנים. הוא טעה, גסות לבקש דבר כזה. יהודה היה יותר שקול. ראובן לא מה זה לא פוליטיקה הרי.
No, the Havil politics, but we're still saying here, the Gemara says straight out, that Yaakov Avinu answers to Reuven, Tipesh ata, hem lo nechadai, they're not my grandchildren? Tipesh? But I'm saying there's something here deeper than that. In order to be a leader, and every person has to be a leader of himself, a leader of his family, leader of a community. Everyone has to look at themselves in the mirror and say, where am I? Where do I hold? What do I say on this issue? Where do I hold on this? And there's no standing on the sidelines. So, here we see that Reuven loses it. He loses his 3 titles because he's also, when he, instead of telling his brothers, okay, let's go out and, let's not kill Yosef, he pulls shtick, he pulls tricks. He says, okay, we're going to throw him into a pit. Well, that's great, but inside that pit there's scorpions and snakes. Well, it's a really great place, Reuven. Okay, so he has a plan to come back. Okay, but he's playing games. He's not straight out. And we see that Yehuda was much, much more on the mark. He comes up and he's willing to confront, even though it's not such a pleasant thing, to confront his brothers and say, Ma betza! Even though he could have gone further. The Gemara says that he made a mistake. If he would have known his own strength, then he could have stood up and if he would have said, Ma betza, what are we going to gain? And let's save him, they would have listened to him. This is a tremendous tragedy. How many people are walking around the world and they're thinking of themselves as some nebach, some poor soul, some nobody, because we're the generation of nobodies. Everyone's walking around, who am I, what am I? I'm not important. Not so. This is a tremendous lesson, that even though Yehuda was much, much more on the mark he was at least willing to confront his brothers. What Reuven was not willing to do, he wanted to play games, to sneak back later on and rescue Yosef. But no one would know, because he doesn't want to come up and have to face the music of the crowd. But Rabotai, it's a tremendous thing that a person has to understand, Bishvili nivra olam, to understand how great, how we are utilizing such a minimal amount of really who we are, of our strengths. And sometimes you see people, you can't believe it, all of a sudden they wake up one day and you see how great they are. It's too bad they've been sleeping for 20 years, 30 years, they've been sleeping. Boker Tov, Modeh Ani.
Western culture, that's what the best of you. The Roberts Now that you're right,
So, anyways, first of all, I bless myself, I bless all here. Those 2 lessons. Responsibility. Everyone has to take responsibility. Don't look left, don't look right, don't look forward, don't look backwards. Ourselves, where am I? What am I going to do about it? What's my response? Don't worry about other people. Worry about ourselves. What are we going to do? Worry about how we're handling ourselves, handling the situation. And not to be afraid to confront. When we have to, if we're able to get along, it's fine. But if we have to stand up, you have to stand up. And we have to realize the tremendous strengths that all of us have. And it's too bad that a lifetime will go by and we don't realize that. And we don't utilize the strength. We use 5% of our brain. Most people. Some people in politics use much less than that, but that's a different subject. But most people, on the average, use 5%. It's amazing, 5% of a person's brain. How much of our strength do we use? How much of our... So we have to bless ourselves to utilize, the tremendous gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. He gave it to us in order to spread it to others. If you smile, if you're like the sun, so Hashem didn't make you smile and bring joy just to yourself. That's good. But He gave it so you make other people happy, smile. There were people in the Holocaust that practiced for months. They strengthened their muscles in their mouth, so they would always they would always have a smile on their face. Because I'm suffering, why do other people have to suffer? A lot of times when you go with older people, they're always kvetching. They're kvetching all day. Oh, my back. Oh, my leg. Oh, my zit. No, be'emet. But there's other people, there's a few. You won't hear one word. You won't hear one word. There's stories of Rav Eliyahu, tremendous stories when he was in the hospital. He was in pain, but nobody knew that. And everybody, when he was there, he would smile. He would make other people feel good. What are we spending our time? What are we spending our strength with? To kvetch? To say, oh, this hurts me, that hurts me. And they spend their whole life just talking about, instead of doing something and thinking about the positive, they're always kvetching about their health. You never hear somebody 10 years old or 15 or 20 years old say, how you doing? Ikar habriyut. You never hear that. It's the most important thing is your health. When you get to a certain age, you start, that's their answer. How you doing? The most important thing is the briyut. Okay, now last week.
נפטר אתמול בכפר תפוח, 37 הייתי בבית אבל עכשיו. שלום אברהם. אדם שחיה משמח אנשים, סבל ייסורים כמה שנים. כולם שהכירו אותו, אדם מאוד מאוד יראה.
Last week, folks, we had a tremendous question that we left here. I'm surprised people were able to sleep all week. We said, in the name of the Be'er Mayim Chayim and others, the Zohar HaKadosh, we mentioned that why was Yaakov Avinu pumping up Esav? Why was he bowing down to Esav? Why was he calling him Adoni? Why was he giving him all these presents? Why was he sending him angels? If you're going to send at least the Dodgers, or, you know what I'm saying, send the Cardinals. What are you sending the angels?
Cardinal, what is this? Baseball. The
So folks, what's going on over here? And we said in the name of the Be'er Mayim Chayim and the Zohar, Yaakov Avinu is not afraid of Mr. Esav. But he understands that the downfall of Esav will come after Esav is pumped up and his ga'ava, his haughtiness, has reached the levels, the levels of the sky, of the stars, of technology. Call it what you want. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu was of the opinion that the end of days were here. The end of days were here. He already took out the White House, Mr. Lavan. He already took out Esav. He already took out Shechem. He was sure that the end of days were here. And as the prophet Obadiah promised, that the Edom will fall when they feel that they are up in the sky just like an eagle, or the stars in the sky. When they get to that level, that is the clearest sign that their downfall is near. Anyone that reads history books will see how the empire falls, and it falls exactly in that fashion of a country that builds itself up, but they build up too much. That's the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. It says in the Gemara that when a Jew receives tremendous blessings, he says, I don't deserve these blessings. I have so many things bad that I do. I have so many bad thoughts. I have so many things that I don't do, that I'd like to do, but I don't do. That's what a Jew says when he receives abundance from Hashem. But a Gentile, ho ho ho! Yeah, wow, me. Anochi Hashem. I'm Hashem. Me, I'm Hashem. So Yaakov Avinu was pumping up brother Esav in order to bring about the final redemption. Because when he gets up to the top, when he's so haughty, when he feels that he's on the top of the world, that's the clearest sign that he's coming down. And when you fall from a high level, it hurts a lot more than when you fall from a low level. So brother Aryeh, Hamechune Lenny, nicknamed AKA Lenny, he's sitting there and he's eating up his guts. And he's saying, what's going on over here? What's going on? What about Chazal that say that because Yaakov Avinu called Esav Adon 8 times, then the kings of the world, instead of the kings, which means influence, king is an influence, Instead of the influence of the world being the Jewish people, the kings are not the Jewish people, but the kings are a bunch of rednecks, Edomim. Reds.
The first communist, the first ashram was in Gagarin. I am an eagle. I'm a nation.
Yeah, American flag also. Stars and the eagle. Raboisai, what's going on? Tremendous punishment. Instead of us influencing the world, for 8 kings, they're influencing the world. Not only that, Yaakov bows down 7 times to brother Esav. For every time that he bows down, Chazal say that another sanctuary, another Mishkan, another Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Just like Avraham Avinu, when he made that covenant with Avimelech. There were 7 sheep, and for each sheep that he made a covenant, Bernie, burn. For that 7 sheep, they paid the price. So what's this jive? What are you telling me? That Yaakov Avinu is pumping him up. He's not afraid of him. He just wants to bring his downfall closer. But we see that he was punished. To find the answer, folks, put on a seatbelt here. Put on a seatbelt and remember this. The word emet. The word emet is the most special word in the Torah. Look at it. Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. Mem is exactly this, right in the middle. It's the middle letter. And the last letter of the alphabet is the Tav. What does that mean? When a Jew does something, we have to make sure that the emes is, we looked from the beginning of our actions, through them, we look through them, until the end. If it's all 3 stages, we're okay, we're kosher, that's emet. Emet has to be 3 stages, from the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So the same Be'er Mayim Chayim, he yells out, why in the world is Yaakov Avinu? Why do Chazal say, Vayira Yaakov me'od, vayetzer lo, Vayira Yaakov me'od, Shema Ya'areg, vayetzer lo, Shema Ya'arog? Why do Chazal tell us that this double expression of Yaakov being afraid and something bothering him? It says that he was afraid that he was going to be killed, and it bothered him that he was going to kill Esav or those other 400. So the Be'er Mayim Chayim yells what everyone here should be yelling at the top of his lungs. What in the world is going on? Haba le'orgecha shkem le'orgo, baby. What's going on here? What's this? This is something that bothered me for some years. What is Yaakov? What's bothering him? Take him out. Take him out. The Be'er Mayim Chayim says an unbelievable. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav. Vayeshuvu malachim el Yaakov leimor. Banu el achicha el Esav. What are these angels? These are not messengers. These are mamash, malachim, angels. And they come to Yaakov and they tell him a secret message, heavenly message. Where's that Twilight Zone music? Len, play it for me. Thank you. Okay. Twilight Zone, Rod Serling. Okay? So, what's going on over here? So, Yaakov Avinu gets this heavenly message that only the angels know. Esav, Achicha, Esav. Yaakov, you're mistaken. You're mistaken, Yaakov. It says in the Zohar Kadosh that Yaakov believed that Esav did tshuva, and it might sound familiar today because there's a lot of people running around and they think that Esav has done tshuva, but we don't have that malach, so we have to be that malach. They didn't do any tshuva.
Why do you need 400 people?
And when Rav Melamed goes up to Waller, Mach Shemo, and he says, I have one important question for you, Waller. And he says, if you had your choice, you see a Jew, would you want to see that Jew a Christian, or you want to see a Jew remaining a Jew? And Waller answers, a Jew. And Rav Melamed here buys it. What is he buying here? Waller didn't lie. Waller's telling the truth, because according to Waller, the best Jew is a Jew that accepts Christ.
Well, don't say that word.
Ooh.
Shouldn't say that word here. I'm serious. There's a lot of jokes here that you shouldn't say it here.
There's no joke here.
אותו האיש.
אותו האיש.
אפילו זה קשה להגיד.
The best thing for Waller and his ilk is if a person remains Jewish, because being a Jew means accepting אותו איש. And therefore, Hegi, Yemach Shemo V'Zichro, can get up in front of thousands of people with his drawing board, and he has the chutzpah, the gall, and he shows everybody how the camp of Israel looked in the desert, and he shows 3 tribes in the east, in the west, 3 tribes in the east, 3 tribes in the north, in the south, in the middle. And you know what he does? He takes his little marker and he follows the lines of the Machaneh. And his lines, you know what they come out to? A cross. His line come out to the cross. So Hegi,
Shtiva Erev. You shouldn't say that. Really? Quite serious. No. Listen, Yaron HaKodesh Sham. He said Torah Shiur.
Avraham, you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
I can miss a lot of points, but that's essential.
Okay.
זה שם עבודי שמע על פיך.
He draws out and he says, here we see the Jewish people, years, generations before the Shtiv Erev was created, they already created it. And that's why Bilam comes up and says, Matovu Alecha Yaakov. What was he talking about, Bilam? So according to Hegi Yimach Shemo, he was talking about that beautiful Shtiva Erev, Matovu Alecha Yaakov. These people lost their minds. So when Waller says what he did, he's telling the truth. The best Jew is like that Jew in the desert. He's running around with that Shtiva Erev. And Rav Melamed doesn't get it. See, because if I say, wow man, you're bad. So if you don't understand the language, you think that I'm saying that Yekutiel man, you're bad. I'm saying that Yekutiel's a bad guy, but I'm saying the opposite, because bad is good. If you're bad, then you're good. That's because we don't understand the language of the brother. If we speak the language of the brother, then we know that the bad is the good. But if we don't speak the language, so we can get away with throwing out all kinds of narishkeit, and the Jews believe it, because they don't understand, they don't speak the language that Waller and others are speaking. So folks,
אם הרב מלמד עושה חילול השם כל כך גדול, אסור לחלק כבוד אליו חילול השם. אם מחלקים כבוד הרב, חילול השם. אני צריך לראות את רב מלמד יגן על עצמו. הוא אדם לא פשוט, הוא אדם לא טיפש.
הוא שלח מאמר להגן עליו.
כן?
והכל שקר
אבל הוא צריך להשיב לרב על המקום. לא דרך מכתבים.
הוא חשוב מדי להשיב.
לא דרך אימייל, לא מכתב.
הוא לא פוגש אנשים, רק דרך שליחים של שליחים, הוא אדם חשוב.
Folks, let's get back to...
לא זה ולא זה. אני רוצה לשמוע משני אנשים.
בבקשה, תנסה.
Back to the Ber Maim Chaim. Ber Maim Chaim says, the only person that knew the true intentions of Esav and the 400 people were those malachim. But Yaakov Avinu was under the impression that Esav had done tshuva, or perhaps had done tshuva. So the malachim have to come to Yaakov and say, no, you say he's your brother, but he's Esav. He's not your brother. He's acting like Esav. Don't be fooled. So Yaakov Avinu is in tsar. He's in pain. Because now, if he kills Esav, what exactly is he going to explain to his father? A person came in peace. A group of 400 people came in peace because that's what it looked like to anybody that was there. If you asked CNN, if you asked Fox, there was a peaceful march that were coming to make peace with Yaakov. And Yaakov, the crazy guy, pulls out a gun and just blows him away. This would be a tremendous desecration of God's name. So Yaakov Avinu is in pain that Esav is not being truthful with his words. He's playing a game and he's fooling people, and that's what's bothering Yaakov. That if he pulls the trigger on Esav, there's going to be a tremendous Chilul Hashem. So therefore, that's what bothered him. And therefore, he didn't kill him, even though he knew that Esav was going to possibly kill him because of the Chilul Hashem. What are we saying?
And that was a mistake. That we pay for to this day.
1 second. There are two conclusions here that we have to understand. I said again, Emet is Aleph, Mem, Tav. When we do something, we have to think of the beginning, the middle, and how it finishes off. There are many people that when they did something that was not straight, was not emet all the way, they paid a dear price for it. Why? What's the problem here? The problem is, I'm just saying on one foot, because I'm on one foot, but besides for that, I'm not going to get into it right now, because I got to leave. But there are two ways. When a person does something that is not straight all the way through, they pay a price in the end for the fact that it wasn't straight all the way. For example, Yaakov Avinu, he did the right thing when he dressed up and he fooled his father. He was commanded. Who commanded him? His mother. Who commanded his mother? Hashem. So what does Yaakov take? He takes 2 goats. And then years later, 40 years later, his sons take what? A goat. And they fool him. Yaakov Avinu, you fooled your father, even though you did the right thing. Even though you did the right thing, you still did. There was something that was not emet all the way. You fooled somebody. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu paid for it dearly. He suffered when they showed him the coat of Joseph, and he thought that Joseph is now killed because they used the blood of the goat. That's what the Zohar Kadosh writes.
Just today, I thought at this point, why didn't Yaakov Avinu say, no remains of him? The animal ate him, didn't leave a bone. We have to bury it. I mean, you can track down an animal and find something remaining.
That's why he never got over it, because if you don't see the body, you never
They
forgot.
were very aware of these very simple, down-to-earth things. They were shepherds, you see. Just the blood was not enough, really.
Folks, there are 2 ways that Chazal see when we do something that's not straight. Either one, we have to pay the price, and sometimes we don't pay the price. Why is that? For example, the Netziv writes in his Perush on the Torah that why was Yaakov Avinu punished that he didn't see Yosef for 22 years? Because of the fact that he didn't see his father for 22 years. But 1 second, time out. Didn't his father send him? So the Emet Davar, the Netziv says an unbelievable. He says, Nachon, but Yaakov enjoyed himself. Which means, dear friends, when sometimes someone's doing the right thing, but it's not straight all the way, and it's somewhere there, you're enjoying it. You get pleasure out of it. It might be so thin you can't even see it. You're going to have to pay the price, even though you did the right thing. Because it's not emet all the way. And there are other times, and the other side of the coin is, if a person is 100% pure, and he did something which was not straight all the way, which was not emet all the way, we see plenty of times in the Torah, in Tanakh, where people did sins. Eit lasot l'Hashem eferu toratecha, avera lishma. As long as you don't get pleasure from it, as long as you don't enjoy it at any certain point, you're not going to pay the price. So Yaakov Avinu, there was a certain part of him that had enjoyment from the fact that he was marrying Leah and then Rachel, and he was working and he was making a lot of money. There's certain small point that he has enjoyment. And now the third lesson is, it's always important to think how something is going to look. Because the Zohar says that Yaakov Avinu never bowed down to Esav. If you look in the words of the Torah, it never says anywhere that he bowed down to Esav. If you look in the Torah and you look when Leah bows down with the kids, it doesn't say that she bowed down to Esav. And when the Shfachot bow down, it doesn't say that they bow down to Esav. And when Rachel and her kids, look it up, it never says once that they bow down to Esav. So that's why the Zohar says, if you look at the language, it never says Vayishtachavu le'Esav. It says that Chas v'Shalom, that Yaakov Avinu would bow down to Esav, Chas v'Shalom. So why was he punished? Len. Because that we know. That we know. People that are sitting here in the Shiur know that. Yaakov knew that. But it looks like he's bowing down to Esav. It looks like he's bowing down to Esav. And when you're doing a Kiddush Hashem, and it's emet, if there's something that doesn't look, if something that doesn't follow the line of the aleph, and then the mem, and then the taf in a straight line, you're going to have to pay a price for it. So even though Yaakov never, chas v'shalom, bowed down to Esav, but the question is, how does it look? Everyone in the yeshivas, every person thinks that he bowed down to Esav. That's how it looks. And therefore, when he calls Esav Adoni 8 times, he was really trying to bring him down. But how does it look? It doesn't look too good. Adoni, Adoni, Adoni. Therefore, Am Yisrael was punished, because it's not emet the whole way through. So go back on these words that we're talking about, because they're very important. I'm summarizing again. When a person does something that's not straight, it's not emet, 100%, or whatever percent, he's doing some kind of Kiddush Hashem, if he's getting some kind of pleasure, enjoying it, the Avera, he's going to get hit. If he's 100% clean, he's not going to get hit. Number 3, always think about those 3 letters. And when you do something, make sure, in the most of your capabilities, that you make sure that everybody understands what the deal is.
Yeah, how do you combine it with the idea of the Hasidus, that they have to be happy, we jump up and down, the happiness of the mitzvah?
That's something very good. A person, it says in the Sefer HaChinuch, writes an important principle in life. That when a person...
No?
What?
That's a benefit. That's something that we enjoy.
No, I'm saying that when a person, let's say I'm not really happy, but I start jumping up and down, or I start smiling, that is something that even though I'm not there in my soul, but that's something that could awaken me. That's something that if you see somebody, a smile brings a smile.
No,
Warmth brings warmth.
He's saying a person is deriving pleasure from that mitzvah because he gets excited and happy with his own dancing. But that's deriving pleasure from a mitzvah, not from an avera.
Something else.